First thing we're going to do here is we're going to look at the control panel. We get to the control panel, we're going to look for administrative tools, and we're going to click on the services option. And inside of this services option, you'll notice that there's two tabs at the bottom. There's standard and extended. They're very similar, but slightly different. There's some services that are found in one and not found in the other. Okay, so you have an option. In this particular case, we're going to use Notepad, but you could use Word or some Word equivalent. I don't think I have any installed on this virtual machine. Notepad works just fine. It's just that the formatting might not be right. Click on Services up here at the left. You click on Action. You can go to Export List. The reason this is useful is because you can see the list in a different form. Not just in this form, but you can put it into a Word document. And then if you're a little bit more handy with scripting or if you know how to find different things within the document, you can have it organize it differently. But you can export the file and then take the text from that file and put it into a text file in Linux, and then you can do things like grep out a specific service or services that contain a certain name, or you can use more advanced search functions. One of the reasons you want to get it into a text file is so that you can more easily view it. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and just name it. We'll put it on the desktop for now. We'll just name it as, services list. Okay. And once we've exported that, you'll see that in the text pad, in the text file, it looks really fishy. But if you export it as a Word document, that looks a little better, right? One of the reasons the text file is so important is that you can export the text file into Linux, Unix, and then use different functions from different operating systems, or use a program like in Windows and Microsoft Word that allows you to search for a similar term and then highlight it, and that way you can have a different way of going through and searching for your different services. There is a way to do this from the command line. One thing you can do is you can run CMD as an administrator. Once you have administrative access, then there's a command called task list, and in task list you can see a list of tasks that are running on the computer. And one of the options, if you want to see the options, you can check them out, but one of the options here is task list services, right? SVC down here, SVC. So you'd say task list services, and then you can port that to the C drive, and use myname.txt. In this case, it's saving it to the root of the C drive. That might not be something that you want to do, but it is something that you can do. And this actually gives you a really nice list of different services. Let's go ahead and go back to the services list. If I look at the desktop Windows manager, I can right click on it. I have the option to stop it, restart it if it's giving me problems, and then I can click on the properties. Now once I get to the properties page, there is a little bit more information, right? The options to stop, etc., etc. Now you can set this as an automatic delayed start application, a manual startup, or a disabled service. And what that means is you can basically tell your computer that when it turns on, it does not start the service until you run a program that requires that service, and then it'll open. That's what it means by manual. As far as disabled goes, there may be instances where you want to disable services because you don't think they're legitimate, or they affect your performance, or they cause a blue screen, or they're part of the problem that you're having. Well, before selecting something and determining whether or not it's necessary service, you might want to go to the support website for Microsoft, and there's a document, I think it's support.microsoft.com. In there, somewhere in their website you can probably find something to the effect. Let's talk about whether or not you want to disable something. You want to find out whether or not this is a necessary service before just disabling it. You can also just attempt to disable it and see what happens. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that without looking it up first. Let's see. So one of the things that you can do here is you can actually click on the dependencies option up here. In this case, this service does not depend on any other particular system components. But if we go down the list and look at services that are running here, like, I don't know, Windows card space, properties, dependencies, no dependencies, okay. Windows time, properties, dependencies, no dependencies. Now, you might find that a lot of these programs do not have any dependencies, but what we're looking for is one that does. Okay, here we go. So now we've clicked on COM plus system application. So keep in mind that all of these dependencies are system components that this particular service relies on. And if this service relies on a dependency and another one relies on the same dependency, and you end up shutting down the dependency through disabling a service, you might make it so that the dependency has been shut down. You just want to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. So like, if again, like it says here, if a system component is stopped or not running properly, dependent services can be affected. So if you have an issue with a dependency somewhere, then that could be one of the problems you're having with your operating system. And typically, if an attacker or an intruder is utilizing some malware that can mess around with some of the dependencies of the core system services, then there may be a possibility that you're getting issues, maybe a blue screen, or the dependency has been altered in some way. And so one way to identify what's going on is by having a better knowledge of what dependencies are working on for each service. One of the things I want to talk about is using the Microsoft System Configuration utility. So now that we've got past the Dependencies tab, let's talk about Microsoft Config. So MSConfig. Okay, and yeah, I think you can also do it from here, MSConfig. Yeah, so if you Windows key R or just type it in the search, Microsoft Config utility, system configuration. So now, one of the things you can do here, some of the functions in the general tab allow the user to conduct an automatic diagnostic on reboot. So if you wanted to click on diagnostic startup, that would allow you to load only the basic devices, and that would allow you to get into figuring out which one of the processes, which one of the services, which one of the drivers is causing my blue screen, or which one particular applications is starting is based on a dependency that's causing an issue that I might need to disable in startup, etc. The other thing that you can do here is you can do a selective startup, and the selective startup allows you to control the .ini files that are used in startup to further identify problems. So you can like block certain types of system services or startup items, and then where you can boot as the system is originally intended to boot, and then figure out what's causing it. Okay, so now let's just select the normal here and go to the services tab. Now here you can see a list of services that are present on your system. So any rogue or unauthorized services identified can also be disabled just by unchecking that box. I'm going to put them in as running versus not running so that we can see, which ones are triggered. Like for instance, credential manager. That might only be triggered when using a specific process, so it hasn't started yet. It's not set to start on startup. You can also select the option to hide all Microsoft services, which allows you to identify which services are available. Like in this particular case, I don't know what remote packet capture protocol version 0.0 is. Right now it's not running, but I might want to look into that and see, is it related to Wireshark? Is it related, because I don't know whether or not that was part of this operating system when I installed it. Apparently it's not a Microsoft service, and from what it sounds like, it looks like something is remotely interested in remotely capturing packets from me. Anyway, so let's talk about the startup tab. Startup tab is pretty cool because it allows you to look at any process that you would like to temporarily disable to see if it has a negative effect on your system performance, right? So if I disable VMware tools, which in this case are the virtual machine tools that allow me to do certain things like transfer files between the two, if I disable that on startup, then I can restart the system and see, hey, did the system start up faster? Is it better performing? So that's something you can do there.